Welcome to another edition of the Insider Mailbag, brought to you by Red Raider Outfitter, the fans' favorite since 1975. I'm Jared Johnson, and Texas Tech is preparing to take on Oklahoma State, 2:30 p.m. Central Time Saturday. They're at Boone Pickens Stadium in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Texas Tech is 3-2 overall, 1-1 in the Big 12, while number 7 Cowboys are 5-0 overall and 2-0 in the Big 12. Coming off a big win over Baylor, Texas Tech had a setback in Manhattan, Kansas against a top 25 Kansas State squad that looks pretty salty so far this season. So Oklahoma State week have a handful of questions from inside the Red Raider subscribers, but almost all of them, or really all of them, are surrounding the quarterback position and the offense. So let's dive into them. First one comes from Turtle Biscuit Boss, who says he knows a lot has been made on if Donovan Smith or Morton should be playing. He says, do we know how Morton feels about all this, and does this jeopardize his future with Texas Tech? Look, I hate to say for sure yes or no on this stuff because I've been doing this a long time, and crazy's going to happen. You know, it's college sports, it's college football, and it's Texas Tech, to be quite honest. So crazy's going to happen, but I just happened coincidentally to bump into Baron Morton on the way out of the facility on Monday after the press conference, and he seemed good. I didn't ask him, hey, are you thinking about transferring? But he seemed good, and he's a West Texan. He grew up partly in Lubbock. He's been rooting for Texas Tech a long time. He's a Suns coach. I've talked to people around. I've met his mom. I've talked to them. They seem like very grounded folks. I feel like I'm not saying he's going to wait for 4 years to play, but I don't think he's going to leave necessarily after his redshirt freshman season because he's not playing. Now, I'm not going to say that definitively. I'm not saying he for sure isn't transferring. Again, crazy's going to happen. But right now, is that a big concern of mine? No. Because of all the things I mentioned. But we'll just have to see how it plays out, that's for sure. Texas Tech Austin wants to know, he says he was on board with Donovan Smith after Murray State, off then after Houston, totally off after NC State, totally back on the bandwagon after UT, and now he's off after Kansas State. He said, have I ever seen a QB with this much inconsistency, and how do I fix that? Well, first off, Donovan Smith has been inconsistent. We saw some of that last year where, obviously he was really good against Iowa State, made some big plays, struggled against Oklahoma State. Now, that Oklahoma State defense was really good. And then, he was good against Baylor. And he was good in the bowl game against Mississippi State. So that's mostly good. Now, he's on a different team in a completely different offense, new offensive coordinator, mostly a new offensive line. Eric Izukam's gone. Now, he wasn't there in the bowl game either against Mississippi State. But it's a different situation. And I think their inconsistent play is something just with Donovan Smith alone. Okay, let's just say that. But I also say, and I hate to keep going back to this, but new system and this offensive line is dictating a lot. And I know I sound like a broken record. I've been saying this for months. I've been saying this since last spring. But I've really felt like this offensive line was going to not only hamstring the quarterbacks and the offensive overall, but the whole team. That this offensive line was probably going to keep the ceiling in terms of wins and losses this year lower than I'd like to say, because it's overall a better defense. I do think they have some good quarterbacks, all three of them. I think they have some good weapons, but they don't have any bona fide superstar that could overcome this offensive line. And quite honestly, in football, really good players, even skilled players, have a hard time getting past bad offensive lines. It's a really important part of the team. Now, I can't say the whole offensive line has been terrible. I'd say as a group, they haven't been very good, especially in the run game. And then the left side has struggled, specifically left tackle, which we've gone over and over. Has given up a lot of sacks. I think Texas Tech has given up 18 sacks, which is among the worst in the country. So they've also run a lot of plays. So, but going back to your actual question on Donovan Smith, he's been inconsistent. How do you help that? I think they've tried to do some things in terms of helping with protection. Kidley, the offensive coordinator, Zach Kidley, has said, look, if it's 4th and 1 and I call a run, I want to run. I want him to run, not check out of it and throw attempt to pass. So I think they've taken away some of the checks to the line of scrimmage. At least some of the times been like, hey, run this play. This is what we want run. And I think the shorter passing game against Texas helped out a lot. So Some things that Donovan did in Sonny Cumbie's offense fit better, I feel like, but also the offensive line was better last year. So there's not one simple answer, but they're trying some things. It'll be interesting to see what they do Saturday against Oklahoma State. A very good defense, obviously a very good program, veteran defensive front. So we'll see what they do to help him. But he's got to hit the open man when it's there. He's got to read it correctly, hit the open man when he pulls the trigger, and he can't turn the ball over. And that's, to me, the incompletions, that's not good, or when he misses open guys. I mean, you're not going to see the whole field all the time. That's just the way it is. I mean, I've heard Troy Aikman say that. He was pretty good quarterback. You're not, even the best of them. But turning the ball over the way he has, that's hard to overcome, even though Tech's defense has been better, because it hadn't generated a lot of turnovers. So there's some things you could do with Smith to simplify things because of the offensive line, and perhaps because he hasn't been reading things the way you'd like him to. But he's got to get a little better with his accuracy in terms of consistently being accurate, and he's got to take care of the football. You do those two things, all of a sudden a lot of things come together. Nas Raider says, from a fan's viewpoint, the offense seems very dependent on short passes and runs, which means you have to have a lot of successful plays to move downfield and score. He said he's not seeing a big reliance on big plays, and he wants to know, does this offense have game breakers at the wide receiver position? Texas Tech's actually 23rd in terms of, according to NCAA stats, 23rd in the country out of 131 teams in terms of offense and total yards. And then in scoring, I believe it's mid or high 30s. So that's not terrible, And you could say, oh, well, some of that's because of Murray State. Well, everybody's got a Murray State on their schedule, so it evens out. By this time, 5 games into the season, those kind of things have evened out a lot. Not completely, but Tech's played a really tough schedule overall. So I think that's pretty good. But the reason why they're putting up these yards and the points they have is because they're running a lot of plays. And to your point, I believe out of all the top 50 in terms of total yards, Tech has the lowest yardage per play, which is, I think it's 5.6 something yards, a little over 5.5 yards. And the number one offense, Tennessee, is putting up like 7.5 yards per play. So that's, 2 yards difference per play, that's a big deal. So to your point, it has been more of a shorter play, not big play offense. Now, at the same time, I can remember Trey Cleveland the last 2 weeks making some big plays. That one-handed stab he made, despite being interfered with last week against Kansas State, was beautiful. That's as good of a catch as you'll see in college football. And then Miles Price, Xavier White, Nehemiah Martinez, all those guys have some nice catch and run plays against whether it be Texas or Houston or whatever. So I think it's more of just consistently protecting your quarterback, consistently reading, making the right read on time, and being accurate, not throwing the ball behind a guy, but hitting him in stride. That's going to be the difference. I think that's what they need to do. Now, I don't care if they have to methodically go down the field, as long as they can execute. But it would be nice to take the top off the defense with some big time plays. And they've tried to do that. Like I said, Trey Cleveland's had some long passes in consecutive weeks, so that's good they have that. I know J.J. Spartman is the type of receiver who's 6'4", 220, can run, and he's great in terms of winning those jump balls against DBs. I'll put my money on J.J. against practically anybody in the Big 12. That's how talented and physical he is in terms of he's almost like a power forward, going up for a rebound, the way he blocks guys out, and just his body control and athleticism, all that stuff. So they have some guys. They definitely have, and I think throwing it to Taj and SaRodorick, they have big playability. So it's just a matter of executing, and it all starts again with protection, and then the quarterback doing his job. So to me, I don't think we've had an opportunity to see how good these receivers really can be. Now, I think there's some consistency, going back to the second question about Donovan Smith, I think there's some consistency issues with these receivers. Right now, the only guy I see who's been consistently good is Miles Price. And even he got off to a kind of a slow start in the first week, but it seems like what everybody was eating against Murray State, of course. But Miles is, I would say, either doubtful or questionable for Oklahoma State. I wouldn't be surprised either way with an ankle sprain. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play because I think it's a legit ankle sprain that should cause someone to miss time. But also, he is a tough guy. Coach McGuire said in his press conference that Miles is one of the toughest players he's ever coached. So that's saying something. So we'll have to see there. Xavier White did do a good job in place of Miles, so I have full faith in him. But it's nice to have your full complement of guys, especially in a big game like this. So I would say, yes, there's some big play receivers, but I don't know if there's consistent big play receivers, which is a problem. The hope is they could spread it around, but maybe they could keep hitting Trey deep and then hitting some of these inside receivers like I mentioned, and hopefully these tight ends, Baylor Cupp, Mason Tharp, and some of these short to intermediate routes that can turn into big plays. All right, the final question comes from Saddle Tramp. It was a long question, to be honest, but basically what he wants to know is why Barry. He's been posting on the board a lot about he thinks Barron should play. He thinks Barron should play, not Donovan Smith. It's got to be Barron Morton. And so he wants to know why Barron Morton isn't playing. And he said, is Barron just that awful in practice? Well, I'm not at practice, so I can't answer that. But I will read to you. I asked about Barron Morton and how he's played in practice, just for y'all, for you, Saddle Tramp. And this is what he told me. I'm going to read you just part of his quote. He said, Barron's still a young guy and still just learning. He said his biggest thing that we talk about is just the operation of the offense, the little things, where to signal, what O-line code to call out. He says, again, Barron's very, very talented, as everybody knows. He's waiting his time. If something happens or whatever, I don't have any hesitation throwing Barron Morton out there. He's just got to continue to get better, and he is every week. I'm still just trying to develop him into the mental mindset more so than the physical traits moving right now. So, I mean, that's pretty straightforward. Bottom line is, in terms of physical ability, yeah, we all know Barron's got it, man. He's a stud. And I'm a little surprised with him being a coach's son, but what Coach Kitley is saying right there is that he doesn't have the full grasp of the offense. And he's obviously saying less so than the original opening day starter, Tyler Shuck, and less so than Donovan Smith. So he is young, so that's part of it. But I mean, if you don't trust your quarterback, has a good firm grasp of the offense, then of course you're going to be hesitant to play him. And so, that's very open. Like, that's very to the point. Like, he didn't say I don't trust him, but basically I'm still trying to get him there with the mental aspect. So I think that's what's holding Barron back right now. I mean, that's pretty plain, pretty cut and dry. And I know that's probably not what people want to hear, but that's what the offensive coordinator is saying. And he's the quarterback's coach. So if Zach Kitley doesn't know, then nobody knows. And that's what he said. So that being said, I think there is something to rolling the ball out and seeing if this kid's a gamer, because I believe he is. Patrick Mahomes was notorious for pissing off Kingsbury in practice. He just wasn't, that great of a practice player. Yeah, he'd throw behind his back or just throw the ball 80 yards from his knee or something crazy like that. But in terms of running the offense and being all serious and having that kind of mentality, it wasn't what when he was young, it wasn't what it pissed Kingsbury off. I mean, that's just a known deal. But then you go out there in the games and he was Patrick Mahomes. So there is something. I'm not comparing Barry Morton to Patrick Mahomes other than playing quarterback at Texas Tech and possibly being a gamer. I do think there's evidence of that. Coach McGuire mentioned, I think it was in spring, maybe spring or fall camp, I don't know. But he said, Barron Morton was tearing it up in the scrimmages. Like, he had a 23 for 25 day. So maybe the kid's a gamer and just needs a full game to get that opportunity. Or maybe he's too young and he needs to get a firmer grasp of the offense. So we'll just have to see how it plays out. But Texas Tech getting ready for a big one. Number 7 Oklahoma State there in Stillwater, 2:30 p.m. Central Time. And the game will be televised on FS1. It's nice. It's not going to be on ESPN Plus. I do not enjoy those streaming broadcasts. I do appreciate the production value of it being on TV, something like FS1. So you'll be able to watch it on television, and I can't wait to see how it plays out. But for now, great questions from everyone as always. Thank you for watching, and until next time.